Hello, my name is Grian, and today I've got something a little bit different. Now, normally when I do a transformation video, it's like a whole time-lapse thing, but because the Minecraft church from the village is so small, I thought I'd do more of a showcase on it because it's quite easy to replicate some of these scales. So this is the original design, and it's very, very basic. Now, before we get into today's video, I just want to give a little disclaimer that these buildings are not entirely accurate. They are not meant to offend anyone of any religious belief. They are just sort of mimicking a very general style of churches, mosques, and that kind of thing. Please don't take any offense from anything that I built. It's just Minecraft, okay? So a little disclaimer there. So we've got the original church. It is very, very basic. It is made out of cobblestone, and it's got blocks missing, and it doesn't look particularly good. So what we've got is a bunch of designs to show you, ranging from temples to churches to Viking stave churches, and even a couple of designs that aren't churches or religious at all. So let's get straight into it, shall we? Let's have a quick look around. On the inside of the church, it is very, very small. It's only 3 blocks wide and a few bits longer than that. So there is not a lot of space to work with. And that's the key thing. We've got to make the most out of the space. The first one that I want to show you, there's a little villager that got away over there. This is more of a Asian style temple. It's very, very generic. It's not got any specifics, but it mimics the same shape as the original. It's got that very backwards L shape going on for it. And for the most part, all we've done is replaced the blocks that were cobblestone with some colours and then decorated it as best we can. So you can see that we've got quite a mixture of grey blocks in there, the polished andesite, we've got some stone brick, and the main thing is the red to grab the colour of the build. So there are quite a few red temple-like structures over in Asia, and we thought that this would really make it pop out. And then decorating it, we've got lots of slabs that go out, and the main thing is to make the corners curve upwards and outwards so that you really get that layered effect. And then we've got the roof on the top, which is made up of grey concrete. I really, really love the concrete blocks. And then we got some windows and a bit of decoration details, such as the cobblestone wall and that kind of thing. On the top, we've got loads more slabs and a very similar effect to the first layer as well. So overall, it's a pretty cool design. If you've transformed a village before, you'll know that there are multiple ways to do it. And an Asian style is not one that I would typically think of, but it works rather well. Next up, we have a more traditional style Christian church, and it is basically exactly the same, but we've detailed it a lot better. What we have had to do is make it bigger, because the original is quite tough to pull off. So we've got the original cobblestone structure in there, as you can see, and we've got a window, and you might notice that the back of this is 1 block smaller than the rest of it. We needed to make some of it smaller to be able to fit in all of the shape. So let's talk about the palette very quickly. You can see that the majority of it is made out of stone brick, but we've still got the cobblestone structure on the inside. The stone brick makes up all of the framework and the majority of the build. It outlines absolutely everything. On the top, we've got a spruce roof made of staircases and some full blocks. The height of this is 12, and the height of the bit at the back is 8 blocks if you wanted to copy this design. On the side, we've got a little ledge here, which is jutting out and being supported by some cobblestone wall and some staircases, and it just acts as a little bit of greenery. Adding some green and some flowers is a fantastic way for a very grey and brown build to have some colour. It really ties everything in together. The front is quite dominating. We've got a couple of lights either side of the church, but the original 3 blocks is still there. You can see the cobblestone structure has just had a stone brick exterior draped over the top and then had a bit of shape added to it as well. It does look a bit more complicated than it really is. On the top, where it meets in the middle, we have got a bit of a decorative plinth that stands at the top. It's got a bit of glass in there, and overall it has a really, really nice effect. Now, I haven't gone on any of the interiors at this time. We'll go through the interiors at the end. They are kind of secondary to the exterior because they are so small. You really have to try and fit as much as you can in a tiny, tiny space. As is customary with all of my showcase videos, here is the desert design, and I guess in real life the closest thing would be a Middle Eastern mosque or something like that, but honestly there's not that many similarities, it is just sort of a desert design. So it does look quite complicated, and that's only because of the sheer amount of details and blocks that are thrown onto the top of this sandstone exterior. For the most part, we have just replaced the original concept with yellow blocks such as the polished sandstone and the birch wood and that kind of thing, and a bit of log thrown in there as well. And then we've got a load of ladders, trapdoors in particular, and even some signs put on there as well. And then a oak roof placed on the top, and then to tie it all together we've added some plants such as leaves and flowers and that kind of thing to make it look a bit overgrown and stuff like that. Trapdoors are really quite dominating on this build. I can see this fitting in quite nicely with a desert transformation if you kept the scale of things very small, almost to the original size. We have got a couple of sandstone spires either side, which is a very Middle Eastern trait for buildings such as these. So overall, looks pretty cool, and you don't have to keep all of those details, you could simplify it or whatever you like. Next up is my favourite design of today's video. This is a Staver Church. Now these were originally built by the Vikings, but I won't get too much into the religious aspect of it, but for the most part this building looks fantastic, and they did in real life as well. They were almost entirely wooden, which is quite odd because not many historical buildings made out of wood have survived to this date, but there are a bunch of these still standing, and I think we've managed to produce one that looks fairly similar and still keeping the very small size of the original church. Obviously we've had to make massive layers on layers on layers. It looks more complicated than it is. We start off with a very small base layer of cobblestone just to give it a foundation to be standing on. And then we start to build up with a log framework, mostly in the same shape and size as the original, which we then extend up a bit later on anyway. So you need to raise that up quite far, and then we create layers of these roofs that highlight and accentuate some of the windows, and there's a very small gap between each layer. It goes up and down and up and down and then all the way around. Very easy to do, even though the entire build looks quite complicated. One of the cool things about this build is these very minute little details such as the buttons and the trapdoors and that kind of thing, all of those little pots on the top. It just adds that little bit extra on this build that really makes it look excellent. On the top we've got a very cool little tower that spreads out, and that adds another extra layer, and finally it finishes off with a very small 3x3 tower. It's about the smallest that it can get. The whole point of this build is about the overall effect. If you took just one part of it and left it on its own, it wouldn't work. You need to have the multiple layers, the little bits of dormer, and in particular those little bit of details with the fence gates, the buttons, and the clay pots as well, to make it work and really tie it in together. And we'll go over the interior of this build, seeing as it's one of the larger ones, on the way back through. Honestly, one of my favourite designs. Next up is a Greek style build, obviously an ancient Greek one. There are some of these buildings still semi-standing in ruin in real life, but they are very iconic. So, of course, they are made out of quartz block, the whitest one we can get, because you got those awesome pillar blocks and the chiseled one as well. And it is quite simple. You have multiple pillars equally spaced apart, and then you have this triangle A-framed roof on top, and for the majority it is made out of quartz. We have got a few trapdoors, both wooden and iron, mixed in with a few buttons here and there. This design is far more simple than most of the other ones that we've looked at today, and it shouldn't be too difficult to copy. There is, instead of having just gaps between the pillars, a bunch of glass panes, and then there's a few trees on the outside made up of fences and leaves. Next up is more of a American sort of Wild West style church. I guess that's the closest comparison in real life, but what you might notice is that it is incredibly orange. What of course this is supposed to be is the transformation from the Savannah village in Minecraft to a better looking transformation. So It's very, very orange. We're using all of the red sandstone and a bit of the acacia planks as well. If you don't like certain details, you can remove it, such as the ladders, which I feel this build could do without. It's got a mixture of spruce in there to try and give some complementary colors and some contrast in there as well. And again, we've got a base layer of cobblestone or andesite or whatever on the bottom. Again, foundation of a build is very, very important. Part of the details of this build is those fence gates that link up all of the framework, particularly on the roof. And then we've got lots of fences hanging down, and on the top we've got a bell tower without the actual bell itself. You could put in a gold block if you wanted to do that. You could have it hanging on an iron fence block, at least that's what I would do. The point of this video is to really show you how you can transform every single biomed Minecraft village into a different design. But this final one is a bit of an extra. Honestly, these are all kind of the same size and scale and match something in Minecraft. This one is a all guns are blazing design here. This is meant to be a mosque or some sort of Russian Tsar thing. It is an awesome design, but it's not really a transformation, but it was so impressive that it had to be kept in the video. It does look quite elaborate and difficult to make, but if you take it step by step and you kind of look at all the different segments, it's actually fairly easy to produce. So what you need to really look for is the different segments. We've got 4 individual towers. Now these towers are all identical, just placed in each corner. So if you're able to make 1, you are able to make 4. In the center, we've got quite a normal looking house. All it is a box frame. We've got a rectangle with an A-frame roof on the top. We've got on the sides some details made out of birch and some mixed blocks, you know, the diorite in there, mixed in with some quartz and some white concrete. The A-frame is the dominating part. It is the structure of this build, and it makes its way all the way round. And like I said, all of these pillars are exactly the same. So if you're able to make a very simple rectangle A-frame house, and in one of these towers you can put all of them together. Like I said, it looks very, very intense and very difficult to make, but you really just need to separate each part out individually and then put them together like they're a jigsaw. The only bit that's different is that little bit of an entrance that juts out and it's slightly smaller, but for the most part, it is fairly simple. The details can be altered in any way that you like, and indeed any of the color schemes as well. So this little entrance is just a mimic of the bigger structure, and one of the most important things of this build is this dominating central tower. So this is probably the most complicated bit to make, but once you've done everything else, you know, made the rectangular thing and then all 4 towers, it is just a circle that sits in the center of the build, making sure that it doesn't touch the towers around it as well. You build it up pretty high, you could detail it with some more birch, and then add an extra lip of a ring with upside down staircase on the top, and some chiseled quartz in there as well. The final piece of the puzzle is this gigantic teardrop shaped roof. It's very beautiful in real life, and you can replicate it in Minecraft using some full blocks and some slabs as well. Very important to use the staircase and the slab to your advantage. More often than not, I see people just using the block, but you can't quite produce the intricate shapes that you need for something like this. Now, I know that this building here doesn't quite reflect anything that's in real life, but it is absolutely gorgeous, and I know it's not really anything like the original church that we made at the start, you know, the original one that's in the Minecraft village. There's nothing left of it. You might as well tear it down and start all over again, but it's so cool that I thought we'd put it in anyway. So what we're going to do now is quickly go through all of the ones we've just looked over the exterior, have a quick look inside the buildings, and see what we've managed to squeeze in to each one of these very small floor-spaced buildings. Now, I did try and keep it in theme with the build instead of just adding the same chairs over and over again. So in our Asian style build, what we've got is no chairs at all. We've got this little tower in here, and we've got just a bell where you just, you know, you bang the gong, and there's a little collecting tin in front of it, which is a cauldron with a trapdoor on top. There's also some banners with some patterns on there. I just put a random one in there. Obviously, we are dealing with very small space, so we have to make the most of it and keep it in theme. This one, for example, has next to no space. We could fit 2 chairs in here, and we've got one single fence gate in the middle, which opens up and makes the little arms on it, and put a couple of chests up the top there as well. The whole point is that if you are transforming a village, these might give you some styles that you could make for the entire thing. In the sandstone one, instead of having chairs, we've got like little poofs that you can sit on as well, and there's a little bit of detail there with the enchanting table. It gives you a literal book to read. In the Viking-styled Staver Church, there's actually more of a communal table and some drinks and that kind of thing, and there's even some sleeping areas up on the top. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I would assume that people did sleep in them if they needed to. In the Greek style one, we do have some chairs, but they are orientated differently, and there's some little trees in there as well. And then another plinth with a book on it, an enchanting table. It is probably the best way to show that you are reading a book. And in the Western style one, with this very orange build, we've got something similar, plenty of chairs, bit of trapdoors, and another enchanting table for the book. And then the interior is very basic indeed, just got some torches to light it up. On the inside of this one, as you might have expected, is a little bit more elaborate. We have got some more chairs, and the only reason it is more elaborate is because we have more space, because we didn't stick to the original scale. It has a chandelier, it's got some bits of chairs and plants and all that kind of stuff, and it does look far more impressive. Obviously, the larger you go, the more detail you can put in, but at some point it's gonna become less of a transformation and more of just a build a church on your own. Now, that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and I need to say a big thank you to Pearlescent Moon and Happy Jellyfish, as always, that helped put together this video. Now, before I sign off, I just want to say I don't want to see any arguments in the comments, please. As I said at the beginning, these are not supposed to be accurate in any way, and they are not meant to cause any offense. The main thing is that religion, regardless of your opinion of it or your religious beliefs, have produced some of the most gorgeous architecture in the world, and this video is just trying to appreciate it a little bit more in Minecraft. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and goodbye!